Hello everyone, this is part 38 of What If Naruto's mother was Tsunade Senju, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Chushikage Mansion, Iwa. Sitting at his desk, the Sandaime Chushikage, Onoki, was busy at work, looking over at several mission reports he had received from the front lines. Looking at the reports, the old Kage frowned at what he was reading. The attacks on Hi-no Kuni, Fire Country's, borders weren't going as well as he and the council had expected. Konoha was putting up better resistance than they had anticipated, even after the damage their forces suffered in the recent invasion. Things were made even more difficult thanks to the recent treaties Konoha had made with Tsunade and Am, which limited the places Iwa could attack from, since to attack Konoha they had to travel through one of 4 nations. Now that Tsunade and Am had sided with Konoha, the only other nation they could travel through safely was Taki no Kuni, Waterfall Country. Kusa no Kuni, Grass Country, was out of the question due to the bad blood Kasagakure, Hidden Grass, had with his village after the Third Great Shinobi World War. Damn, Konoha, grumbled the irritable Chushikage. Konoha had always been a difficult village to deal with. Regardless of the fact that Iwa's military strength was superior to theirs, the village somehow always managed to overcome whatever was thrown at them. But what aggravated Onoki even more, was how the village was able to produce so many outstanding shinobi like the Densetsu no Sanin, legendary 3 ninja, Konoha no Shiroikiba, Konoha's White Fang, Hataki Sakumo, and his son Hataki Kakashi the Kopi Ninja, Copycat Ninja. This was of course only naming a few, and not counting the 4 previous Hokage, who all proved their worth multiple times on the battlefield. It's almost as if Konoha is favored by the heavens. But if this goes right, that will soon change. Shortly after, the Sandaime's train of thought was interrupted by the sound of someone knocking on his door. Responding with an enter, the door opened, revealing his son Kitsuki. Unlike his father, Kitsuki was a tall and brawny man. He had dark eyes and gray-colored hair that ended in a ponytail along with a beard and a bulbous nose. He wore the standard Iwagakure shinobi uniform with a left sleeve and a right lapel and wore his forehead protector around his right arm. You called, Sandaime-sama. I did, grunted the small Kage, before indicating for him to take a seat. It regards the special assignment I gave you earlier. At the mention of his special assignment, the veteran Jonin stiffened, knowing what this mission could mean. Have you received some information relating to the target? Yes, nodded the aged Kage. One of our deep cover agents sent word that the target is being assigned on patrol duty along the Am no Kuni and Hi no Kuni border. Strange, I thought Am and Konoha recently agreed to a mutual defensive pact. Why do they need to increase their border patrols there? Kitsuki asked, curious by Konoha's actions. Because thanks the treaty Am has to re-establish the defensives around their western and eastern borders, this will leave some gaps in their lines for a brief time. That girl Tsunade knows this, which is why she is sending extra patrols there to monitor the borders until Ams has secured them, explained the Chushikage, where Kitsuki nodded his head, since it made sense. What are the details of the mission? Kitsuki inquired, before being handed a folder by his father. I want you and your team to attack the group, capture target and bring him back here, alive. What of the others? They're to be eliminated, answered Onoki. I don't want anyone reporting back to Konoha telling them what happened. You and your team are to make it look like Am or one of the other villages is responsible. I don't want anything linking back to us. And if capturing the target proves impossible? Kitsuki asked, still reading the file. Then he is to be dealt with, the old man replied coldly, without any remorse. Capturing or even eliminating him won't be easy, even with the team I've picked, remarked Kitsuki, looking at the photos of who would be accompanying the target, some of whom he knew from previous encounters. Yes, I am aware of that, nodded the elderly Kage. That's why I'm having a full company join you on this mission. They've orders to assist you on your mission. You'll have overall command, but the company will have their own leader. Under normal circumstances, Kitsuki would have considered sending a full company to assist him on a mission like this overkill. But given the caliber of some of the shinobi they'd be facing, they would need every one of those shinobi if they were to succeed. The only problem being that it would be difficult to get through Am no Kuni unnoticed with such a large group. 1. Have you finalized the members of your team? Yes, answered Kitsuki, closing the folder he'd been given. I've decided on a 4-man team counting myself, Kuretsuki, Akatsuki, who have first-hand knowledge on what the target can do. Manga will also be joining the team as my second in command. Good, said the Chushikage, finding the team acceptable. Who will be in command of the company? Ayotsuki, too. At the mention of Ayotsuki, Kitsuki frowned. Ayotsuki, are you sure that's why Sandaime-sama? The woman doesn't exactly have a stellar reputation within the village. I am aware of that, replied the Chushikage with his own frown, having heard the rumors himself. But she is a skilled kunoichi and has accomplished many difficult missions. At the cost of her subordinates, Kitsuki retorted, with no small amount of disgust. Ayotsuki was well known for sacrificing her own subordinates to defeat her opponents. She had the highest casualty rate out of all the jonin in the village, earning her the moniker, Genin Goroshi no Ayotsuki, Genin Killer Ayotsuki. The fact that she showed no remorse for the deaths of her fallen comrades made her even more detested by other shinobi. She was even a borderline sadist, where Kitsuki had heard rumors from other shinobi about how she enjoyed cutting up defeated enemy shinobi with her katana, even when they were already dead. This is not a discussion, it's an order, growled the Chushikage before slamming his fist down onto his desk. I don't care if you like the woman or despise her, we only have one chance at this before AM seals their borders again. You will work with her and accomplish your mission, am I clear? For a moment, neither the Chushikage nor his son said anything, and just stared coldly at one another. Eventually though Kitsuki stood from his seat and tossed the folder onto his father's desk, causing the photos and papers to spill out, "Hi Chushikage-sama," almost spitting out the words. He then turned around and left the office, slamming the door shut behind him. After his son had left, the Chushikage sat alone in his office for several minutes, staring at the closed door angrily before slamming his fist onto his desk again and yelling, "Damn it all." Once he had calmed down, the Chushikage picked up one of the pictures that had spilled out of the folder when his son threw it. There was a picture of a young boy with spiky blonde hair and bright blue eyes, with the name, Senju Naruto, written on the bottom, along with the word, target. All this trouble for one brat, grumbled the elder Kage to himself. Placing the picture down and tidying up his desk, he then floated out of his chair and out an open window, deciding to get some fresh air, to clear his head. Back in Konoha, the newly installed Godime Hokage, Senju Tsunade, was in a meeting with her son and his 2 teachers, whom she had just called. You requested us Hokage-sama? Asked Yamato. I did, said the female Hokage, looking up from her work. I have a new mission for the 3 of you. All right, cheered Naruto, pumping up his fist in the air. He hadn't been on a mission since Cha no Kuni, T-Country. What exactly are the mission parameters? Yamato asked. A standard C-rank patrol mission near the Am no Kuni, Hai no Kuni borders, Tsunade replied. Are you expecting something from Am? Kushina asked. Not exactly, the busty Kage replied. Am is holding up their end of the agreement and are securing their borders to Tsuchi no Kuni, Earth Country. But they need to reorganize their defenses, which will take a few days. Iwa probably knows this and might make one last attack on our borders before that. Don't we have enough forces there already? Kushina asked, knowing that Konoha had several bases along the Hai no Kuni, Am borders. Given our recent pact with Am, I've diverted a large portion of our forces from the borders there to strengthen our borders with Tsuki no Kuni, since that is the only other nation Iwa can travel through safely. We still have enough shinobi there to protect the border, but they're bit short-handed with keeping the patrols up, which is why I am sending you and one other team to help them out. Don't worry Ka-chan, if we see any Iwa shinobi, we'll kick their asses and send them back running. Naruto declared. But no sooner had he said those words, Tsunade slammed her hand onto her desk, causing it to crack slightly, and shouted, No. Your orders are to simply patrol the borders, and in the unlikely event that Iwa does try something, you're to fall back and report to our base at Gurnka. Do you understand, Naruto? Cowing before the stern look his mother was giving him, Naruto nodded his head. Satisfied with this, Tsunade told them they were to leave tomorrow morning and would meet up with the other team at the main gate. After dismissing the group, Tsunade held Kushina back. Kushina, my orders regarding Naruto still stand. I expect you to follow through with them to the letter this time. Am I clear? Giving the red-headed Jonin the same stern look she gave her son. As glass, Hokage-sama, replied the nervous-looking redhead, remembering the lecturing she got from the female Hokage after their return to Konoha. Tsunade even threatened that if she ever diverted from her mission parameters again, she'd have Kushina demoted back to a genin faster than she could eat ramen, and would have her do D-rank missions for the rest of her career. Good, replied the blonde woman before dismissing Kushina, who quickly left the office. The following morning Naruto and his two teachers arrived at the main gate, where they met the other team. The first man was a jonin by the name of Shirakumo Hayama, who was the leader of the other team. Hayama wore the standard Konoha shinobi outfit, albeit his uniform had short sleeves. He had long dull dark gray hair held in a ponytail and a distinctive-looking scar running down the right side of his mouth and pronounced tear troughs under his eyes. He also wore a pair of fingerless gloves and carried a thin katana strapped horizontally to his back, which indicated he was skilled with a sword. The second man was Kanden Tekino, and like Hayama was a jonin. Tekino was a robust man with shaggy brown hair. Like Hayama, Kushina and Yamato, Tekino wore the standard attire of a Konoha shinobi along with a pair of fingerless gloves. Although he wore his flak jacket unzipped showing a utility sash which Naruto guessed held scrolls and weapons hold several scrolls. After meeting and greeting the two jonin, Naruto noticed a short, elderly-looking man standing behind them. The old man was short in stature with gray hair that was tied in a short ponytail. He wore a mesh armor shirt under a short, brown, sleeveless kimono with a pair of gray pants. On his back he carried a wok and ladle, which Naruto guessed was for cooking, along with a sword sheathed horizontally across his lower back. Thinking the man was lost or looking for someone, Naruto walked over to the elderly man. "Oh, Oji-san, is there something we can help you with? We are kind of having a meeting here." Before the old man could reply, Naruto was suddenly slapped on the head by Kushina, who seemed more than a little annoyed with him. "Naruto, be more respectful to Kosuke-san," the redhead berated, before turning to Kosuke. "Please forgive my student, Kosuke-san, he means no disrespect, he can just be a bit of a blockhead at times." Amused by the antics of the two, the old man smiled good-naturedly. "Ho, no apologies needed, Kushina-san." "Still," said the redhead, "I'm glad to see that you're doing well, you haven't changed a bit." "Oh, I have," chuckled the old man. "This old body of mine has aged quite a bit. You on the other hand, are just as lovely as ever." Embarrassed by the elderly man's comment, Kushina said nothing, although her cheeks turned a healthy pink. "You know him?" Naruto asked, rubbing his still sore head. Before the Kushina could respond, Tekino laughed. "Ha, haven't you ever heard of Maruboshi Kosuke, the Manin Genin, the Eternal Genin?" "Eternal Genin," repeated Naruto, having never heard of the name before. "Yay," replied the smiling jonin, "according to rumors he's been a genin for about 50 years. 50 year. A stunned Naruto said, looking at the old man in surprise. Sure, he had seen some adults and middle-aged men who were still genin back in the Chunin exam. But he didn't think it was possible for a person to stay a genin that long. At the same time, Naruto felt like he was forgetting something. For some reason Kosuke's name sounded familiar to him, as if he had heard it from someone. "Hey Captain, isn't there anyone a little better? Even the Senju kid here seems more capable than him," Tekino moaned. Surprisingly Kosuke took no offense to the young jonin's complaint, and instead smiled, indicating he was either used to such remarks or didn't care about them. Kushina on the other hand was not as forgiving. "I suggest you watch your mouth, Kanden," snarled the female jonin, giving the younger man a withering glare. "Kosuke-san is more capable than you could ever know and is someone you would want on your side when in a fight. So I suggest that you show him the respect he deserves." "Agreed," added Hayama, joining the conversation. "I personally asked Kosuke-san to accompany us on this mission. Despite his appearance, he is a reliable person to have around." Not wanting to get on Kushina's bad side any more than he already had, Tekino quickly apologized for his remarks. Although he had only recently become a jonin, Tekino had heard plenty of stories about the female Uzumaki, which told him that she was not someone he wanted to piss off. With the dispute regarding Kosuke and Tekino settled, Yamato suggested that they leave for Gurnka base, in the hope of avoiding any more arguments. Agreeing with suggestion, Hayama offered to take the lead, where the two groups quickly took off. Several days later, after arriving at Gurnka base, Naruto and the others met with the base commander, who wasted no time in telling them what sector they would be patrolling. When they had arrived at the designated location, the two teams began search the area of any hidden enemies. Once they were certain that the area was secure, the two teams began setting up traps, in the event that they came under attack or an enemy snuck past them. Kosuke-san, you know this area pretty well. Do you know if there are any suitable places to make camp? Yamato asked, after he and the others had finished setting up the last of their traps and had regrouped. Oh yes, nodded the old shinobi. The Nadaime Hokage-sama's cave is near here. The Nadaime? Asked the senior Mokuton user. It's a cave that I found, many years ago, back when I came here under the command of the Nadaime Hokage-sama. Wait, you served directly under my great-granduncle? Naruto asked, surprised by the news. Hi, replied the old man. When you've been a genin for as long as I have, you're likely to work with many great shinobi masters. Over the years I also served with your godfather Jiraiya-sama of the Densetsu no Sannin, legendary 3 ninja, as well as Sakumo-sama, known as the Shiroikiba, White Fang, the Yondaime Hokage-sama and the Sandaime Hokage-sama. He served with Two-san, Ero Sennin and Jiji. Wait, now I remember why his name sounded so familiar. Ero Sennin mentioned him a few times when he was telling me about some of his past missions. Not believing Kosuke's story, Tokun laughed. Hey, they sound like pretty long tall tales to me. Tekino although didn't laugh for very long, courtesy of a dangerous glare from Kushina, which made the younger Jonin stop laughing and gulp, when he caught the look the former Anbu captain was giving him. Wanting to avoid another argument, Yamato suggested that they head to the cave Kosuke suggested and make camp before it got dark. Not wanting to be caught unprepared for the night to come, Kushina agreed and asked Kosuke to lead the way. But not before giving Tekino one last glare, causing the young man to sweat a little. Once they arrived at the cave, Kosuke offered to catch the food and prepare dinner while the others were preparing the traps and setting up camp. Welcoming the idea of a hot meal, everyone almost immediately agreed to the suggestion. With Kosuke preparing dinner, Kushina decided to take charge and assign everyone with duties, being the most senior member of the 4 Jonin present. She assigned Yamato with lookout duty, and then had Hayama and Tekino set up traps on their eastern and southern flanks, while she and Naruto set up traps on the northern and western flanks. After finishing setting up traps on the northern flank and having half the traps for the western flank finished, Naruto decided to ask his teacher something he had been on his mind. Kushina-sensei, why do you get so angry when someone makes fun of Kosuke-san? Because most people undervalue Kosuke-san simply because he's an old genin. They forget that rank does not show a person's strength, Kushina answered after she finished placing the last seal for a barrier that she had prepared around the camp. Agreeing with his sensei's sentiments when it a person rank, Naruto nodded, but before he could say anything, Kushina continued. It's also because, if it wasn't for him, I'd be dead. Seeing the confused look on Naruto's face, the red-headed Jonin explained further. Several years ago, back before the Third Great Shinobi World War had started, I was sent on a mission with a group of shinobi, one of them being Kosuke. We were sent on mission to deal with a small group of Kumo shinobi that had infiltrated our borders. Naturally we dealt with them easily enough and chased them out, but that's when things went bad. What happened? Asked Naruto. Looking up at the slowly setting sun, Kushina sighed before turning to Naruto. I was young back then, and hadn't been a chunin long, like Tokun and others. I undervalued Kosuke, thinking he was just a weak-old genin. After we had chased the Kumo shinobi out of Hai no Kuni, our captain ordered us to return to the village, but I disagreed. I wanted to pursue the Kumo shinobi and kill them all, and send a message to Kumo on what happens to their shinobi when they enter our lands. You wanted to kill them all? Naruto repeated, shocked that his teacher, normally kind and caring teacher, could act so callously. Even after you had defeated them. I was young and angry back then, the redhead replied sadly, somewhat ashamed of her past actions. It wasn't long after Kumo tried to kidnap me, and I wanted payback, not only for what they tried to do to me, but also because of the part they played in the destruction of Zushiogakur, Hidden Whirlpool, and like the hot-headed fool that I was back then. I ignored our captain's orders and chased after the Kumo shinobi across our borders, thinking I could handle the group by myself. But I soon realized how wrong I was when I found myself surrounded by a platoon of Kumo shinobi. I then realized that the Kumo shinobi we had defeated earlier were just a feint to lure us out of Hai no Kuni, so the main force could ambush us. So what happened? Asked Naruto. Realizing that I had fallen into their trap, I tried to escape, but I was easily overwhelmed by their numbers. But before they could bring me back to Kumo, Kosuke arrived, having followed me. He then single-handedly defeated a dozen Kumo shinobi and then covered me as we retreated back across our borders. By then he had killed about 20 Kumo shinobi in total, half of the enemy's force. When Kushina finished her story, Naruto's opinion of Kosuke soared and developed a newfound respect for the elderly man. He also began to understand why his sensei got so angry when people made fun of or insulted Kosuke, since he had saved her life at the risk of his own. Kosuke must be incredibly strong, Naruto remarked. He is, nodded Kushina. In terms of skills, he could easily be a jonin, which is why those of us, who know how skilled he really is, refer to him as Konoha Seikyo no Genin, Konoha's strongest genin. I even heard that for a time he was trained by the Nadame Hokage. Seriously? Naruto asked, surprised by the news, having never heard this. To the best of his knowledge, the Sandaime and the two shinobi elders Koharu and Homura were his great-granduncle's only students. Then why is someone as strong as him still a genin? Before Kushina could answer, she and Naruto suddenly heard some movement coming from the bushes behind them. Thinking it was an enemy, the two readied themselves. But before they could attack, Kosuke emerged from the bushes carrying a large amount of fish, mushroom and plants in his wok. Kosuke, cried Kushina, what are you doing here? We nearly attacked you. Ho 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 ho, then it's a good thing you didn't, replied the smiling old man. I apologize for startling you both. I just came by after gathering everything I needed and was wondering if I could ask one of you to help with the cooking. Nodding in understanding, Kushina turned to Naruto, you go with Kosuke-san, I can handle the rest here by myself. Sure thing, said Naruto before heading back to the camp with Kosuke. Shortly after, the camp was filled with the delicious smell of food being cooked. You're quite good at that, Naruto-san, Kosuke commented, as he watched Naruto sake the wok over the fire and stir the food, while he was cut up some mushroom. Thanks, Naruto replied. I had a lot of practice helping Tsunade when I was younger. I see, said the old man before going back to cutting up the mushrooms. But his attention soon split when he heard Naruto speaking to him again. Kosuke-san, can I ask you something? You may, Kosuke replied as he continued to cut the mushrooms. Why are you still a genin? Kushina-sensei told me how strong you really are, and of the time you saved her from the Kumo shinobi. She even said that you were once a student of my great-granduncle the Nadame Hokage. As soon as Naruto had asked this question, Kosuke stopped cutting and his smile almost immediately faded, and was replaced by a sad, depressed look. Seeing this, Naruto quickly regretted asking the question, realizing that he may have dragged up some painful memories for the elderly genin. But before he could say anything, he heard Kosuke say, I'm not worthy of being a jonin. What do you mean? Asked Naruto before he could stop himself. According to Kushina-sensei, you're plenty strong. With your skill you could be easily become a jonin. There is more to being a jonin than simple strength or skill, Naruto-san, Kosuke answered before going back to cutting up the mushrooms, but at a much slower pace than before. When he saw the confused look on Naruto's face, he decided to explain further. Jonin are elite shinobi, who not only take on dangerous missions for our village, but are also the teachers for younger shinobi like you, Naruto-san. They're responsible for leading and protecting those who are under their command. I do not fit into that category. Why not? Asked Naruto. Given Kosuke's actions when he risked his life to save Kushin, he clearly fitted into the category of a jonin leader. Halting his cutting, the elderly man closed his eyes and sighed deeply, as memories of his past flooded his head. He then slowly opened his eyes and turned to look at Naruto, his eyes filled with sadness and shame. Long ago, when I was not much older than you, Naruto-san, I made a reckless decision that cost my teammates their lives. If I had thought things through more carefully and been more patient, it's likely they would have lived. But I was young and foolish, blinded by pride, and eager to be promoted. That's why I've remained a genin for this long. A man who causes the death of his own comrades is not worthy of leading others. Ashamed of how he had dug up such painful memories for Kosuke, Naruto quickly apologized, stating that he shouldn't have asked and that it had been none of his business. Kosuke though just smiled, like he normally would, and said it was fine and that he couldn't have known. But despite the old man's assurances, Naruto still felt awful for digging up his past, and asked nothing more of him. Not long after, Kushina and the others returned to the camp. Having finished setting up the traps around the camp, Yamato was also with them, after left a clone to take over his watch until he returned. Dinner was an enjoyable event for the group, where the team talked and shared stories of past missions with each other. This is great, praised Tokun, as he continued to dig into his stew. I told you Kosuke-san was a useful person to have around, Hayama replied. Tokun though just nodded in agreement, his mouth being too full of stew to say anything. Ho 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 ho, thank you, but I cannot take all the credit. Naruto-san helped out quite a bit, he's rather good at it. Surprised by this news, Kushina turned to her student charge, you cook? Yeah, Naruto nodded, when I was younger, I used to help Shizune out all the time in the kitchen. She then taught me how to cook before I came to Konoha so that I could take care of myself. Did Tsunade-sama not help? Yamato asked, which caused Naruto to suddenly burst out laughing. Ka-chan cook? No way, she's completely hopeless in the kitchen. One time when I was 6 she tried to make me some ramen, but set the microwave too high and caused the ramen cup to explode the moment she opened the door. Another time, when Shizune and I had gone grocery shopping, she decided to make herself some tea. By the time we got back she had half the kitchen burnt down. We still don't know how she did it. But after that Shizune banned Ka-chan from ever entering a kitchen, or from ever cooking again. When Naruto finished his stories, everyone, including Yamato and Hayama, burst out laughing as they pictured Tsunade standing in the middle of a burnt-down kitchen, after trying to make something as simple as a cup of tea. Boo-ha-ha, that has got to be the funniest I've ever heard, laughed Tokun, nearly spitting out his food from laughing so hard. Tekino was of course not the only one, as Kushina nearly choked on a piece of meat she had just swallowed, after hearing the stories. She even remarked that she would have paid good money to see Tsunade trying to cook. I suggest that you don't let the news of you being able cook get out, Kushina grinned after taking another bite of her food. Not unless you want your status as one of the most desirable boys in the village to be strengthened. You'd be surprised by how few male shinobi there are who can cook or would even try to cook. Embarrassed by what his teacher, guard, had said, Naruto focused his attention of his dinner, so to hide the pinkness on his cheeks. Unfortunately for the young blonde, this was only the start of his teasing, as the other members of the group were curious by Kushina's comment. The most desirable boy in the village? Kosuke asked with a hint of merit in his voice, having never heard of this. Smiling broadly, the female Uzumaki nodded, oh yay, you wouldn't think it, but our brat here is quite the heartthrob. He already has his own personal fan club. Really? Asked the amused Tekino, glancing over at Naruto, who refused to look up and continue to stare at his food. But if one were to look closely enough they would have seen Naruto gripping his bowl tighter, causing it to slowly crack. Seeing this, Yamato wisely decided to move away from his partner, having an idea of what would happen next. Kushina on the other hand continued, as teasing Naruto about his love life was one of her main source of entertainment, he made it just too easy for her. Now that you mention it, I heard some rumors about that. I even heard that the Yamanaka heiress is the head of that fan club you mention, Tekino remarked with a smile when he saw even more crack appear on Naruto's bowl. Oh but it gets better, added the grinning redhead, deciding to throw oil onto the already raging conflagration. I even heard that the Hyuga heiress has a little crush on him. Not to mention that Yuki girl from Kiri and maybe even that Yugito girl from Kumo. And of course we can't forget Mai-chan now, can we, Naruto? Emphasizing Mai's name, causing Naruto to go even redder. You mean Sanshou no Hanzo of the Salamander, granddaughter? Asked Hayama with some surprise, having heard that the granddaughter of the legendary shinobi had entered the Chunin exam. The same. Damn, way to go kid, Tekino congratulated quietly. He had heard the stories how attractive the young Hattori girl was from other shinobi, not to mention her choice of outfits. Maybe I should start asking him for some tips. It's nothing like that, Naruto said suddenly, as he looked up and glared angrily at his grinning teacher. Sadly his glare was made far less intimating due to the redness of his cheeks, from blushing so much. We're just friends. That's it. Really, replied the female Uzumaki, well you must be very close to your friends, especially your female friends like Mai-chan, after all you did make out with her right in front of everyone at the preliminaries. At the mention of the preliminaries, Naruto's face went completely red, both Yamato and Hayama seemed uncomfortable at the topic of conversation and focused on their meals. Tekino although was grinning as he listened intently to Kushina, while Kosuke just smiled in amusement. Kushina looked over at Naruto and saw that the boy had gained an almost violent vein pulsing on his forehead to go along with his now twitching eyebrow. At that moment Kushina decided to push the final button. Maybe I should tell the guys here, all about your little rematch with Mai-chan and how it ended. No sooner had she said this, Naruto's eyes widened in horror. You swore you would never tell. His face now practically glowing red, where anyone could see him in the dark. I did no such thing, Kushina replied cheekily before turning to the others. You see guys, our little Casanova here was able to get to second base with Hanzo granddaughter, all without even trying. 3. But before Kushina could go into detail about what happened, Naruto's bowl shattered in his hand. He then leapt forward, and shouted, D-D-D-I-I-I-I-E-E-E, as he attempted to strangle the source of his humiliation. But Kushina was ready for him and jumped off the log she was sitting on and landed a few feet away from him. Determined to make his teacher, guard, pay for the humiliation he had suffered, Naruto chased after her. Watching as they two raced around the camp, Kosuke and Tekino laughed and cheered Naruto on, as he tried to capture the red-headed Jonin. Yamato on the other hand just signed and took a second helping of the food. I take it this is a common occurrence with these two? Hayama asked. He knew what Kushina was like, having severed with her several times, but this was his first time working with Naruto. I'm afraid so, Yamato sighed, well used to being the only mature person on his team. Don't you think we should stop them? They'll get tired, eventually, explained the Mokuton user, before going back to his meal and watched as Naruto chased after the cackling woman, shouting out curses and saying what he would do to her once he got hold of her. A few days later, the following next few days passed peacefully enough for the group, with no sign of any shinobi from Iwa. But despite the fact that their patrol duty was nearing an end, the group did not relax and continued their vigil over the border. During that time the group continued to lay out traps around the surrounding area, while keeping a lookout for any possible intruders. Yamato and Kushina also took advantage of the time to continue Naruto's training. Kosuke and the others would even sometimes help out or offer to spar against him and give him some tips on what to improve on. In return Naruto helped out Kosuke with the food preparation, where the elderly shinobi not only gave him some recipes for some dishes he had made, but tips on what plants and things could help improve the flavoring of food. He even shared some stories of his previous adventures with not only the Sandaime and Jiraiya, but also Sakumo and the Yondaime, which Naruto was grateful for. Later that night, while Naruto and most of the others were at the camp eating dinner, a large group of Iwa shinobi were gathered together at the Am no Kuni, Hai no Kuni border. After receiving reports from their scouts on Naruto and the others' location, the leader of the group, Captain Kitsuki, began drawing on the ground, explaining his plan to his squad leaders. The plan is simple. We will split into 3 groups. Manga and I will take 40 men, which is half our strength. Aotsuki will take 30 and Kuretsuhi will be in charge of the remaining 10, with Akatsuki supporting her. Manga and I will cross the border and act as a decoy and distract the Konoha shinobi. But once they see our numbers they'll probably try to retreat and warn their base at Gurnka. That is where your group comes in, Aotsuki, explained Kitsuki, glancing at the female Jonin next to him. While Manga and I keep the enemy distracted, I want your group to head north and circle around the Konoha shinobi, outflanking them, forcing them to head east, where Kuretsuki and her group will be lying in wait, trapping them between our forces. Once we have them surrounded, we'll capture the boy, kill the others, and leave just enough evidence that suggests that they were attacked by shinobi from a Megakure, Hidden Rain. If everything goes well, we'll have the Senju heir. Konoha will never know the truth and believe that Am betrayed them, causing them to break their treaty and declare war on Am. Is the boy really worth all this trouble? I know he possesses the same Mokuton powers as his ancestor the Shodai Hokage, but still, doesn't this seem just a little extreme? Kitsuki's second in command, Manga asked. Manga was a tall and muscular-built man. He had dark hair, a wide nose and grey-blue fang-shaped markings beneath the center of his eyes. He wore the standard Iwagakure outfit, consisting of red clothing with a left sleeve and lapel. He wore his red forehead protector in a bandana style which was tied in the back. 4. The Chushikage-sama believes so, and I agree. During the Konoha invasion the boy fought and defeated both the Shukaku and Nibi Jinchuriki, which is no easy feat for any shinobi. So if he can do that, after being a genin for just 6 months, imagine what he can do when he is older. Seeing the logic of Kitsuki's reasoning, Manga nodded, after which Kitsuki turned to the rest of the group. Are there any other questions? I have one, voiced Aotsuki. Ayotsuki was an attractive young woman, with long brown-colored hair that she tied in a ball on top of her head, using a pair of large needles, while two large locks with darkened tips frame the remainder of her face. Her attire consists of a short sleeveless dress, further adorned by the presence of numerous bandages that encircle various portions of her body, including her waist and thighs, and carried a long katana on her back. If this mission is so important, why do you give command of a squad to a little girl like her? Ayotsuki asked, looking at Kuretsuki, who glared angrily at the older woman. Especially since she's only been a chunin for less than a year. Sensing his daughter's hostility, Kitsuki quickly intervened to prevent an escalation to the argument. Kuretsuki is a skilled and capable kunoichi. She also has first-hand knowledge on what the Senju heir is capable of, which will be key to the success of this mission. And I trust her abilities. Unimpressed, Ayotsuki scoffed, "Che, sounds more like favoritism to me." Before Kitsuki could respond, Kuretsuki suddenly stood up and took a step closer to Ayotsuki, who also stood up. "If you got a problem with me, how about we settle this here and now?" growled the young girl, as she was almost nose to nose with Ayotsuki. Sneering back, Ayotsuki replied, "Anytime, princess." But before a fight could erupt, Kitsuki stood up and shouted, "Enough!" causing everyone to look at him. "The two of you are kunoichi of Iwa, and you act accordingly." Turning his attention to Ayotsuki, the Jonin captain then said, "Ayotsuki, if you have a problem with how I do things, you're welcome to leave and return to Iwa, where I will have someone else take your place. If not, you'll keep your remarks to yourself and do what you're told. Am I understood?" Growling out the last part. For a moment Ayotsuki said nothing, and stared back defiantly at the taller man, but eventually relented. "Fine," she scoffed, "your princess can be in charge." Growling at the woman's obvious disrespect, Kitsuki dismissed her and told her to get her people ready for the mission. Nodding, Ayotsuki then walked away, but not before glancing at Kuretsuki one last time. "Another time, princess, when your daddy isn't around to protect you." Growling at the remark, Kuretsuki was about to retort, but was stopped when she felt her father's hand on her shoulder. "I really hate that bitch," Kuretsuki muttered as she watched Ayotsuki walk away. "I don't like her any more than you do, but for now we have to work with her. We cannot afford infighting, so for the time being we'll just have to endure her." "Fine," grumbled the girl, "but I still don't see why Gigi wants us to capture that Senju brat. It would be easier if we just killed him and be done with it. The Chushikage-sama believes he is more useful to us alive. If capturing seems impossible, we're to kill him," Kitsuki replied. Nodding, Kuretsuki walked away to get her squad ready, while her father began giving out orders the rest of the squad leaders, telling them they would move out at dawn. Back at the Hai no Kuni border, atop a cliffside overlooking the borders between the Hai and Am borders, a tired Naruto let out a large yawn as he watched the sun slowly rise from the horizon. It had been a long night as it had been his turn to go on the night watch, but he didn't mind. He enjoyed watching the sunrise, since it was one of his mornings were his favorite parts of the day. With his watch now over, Naruto figured that he would head back to camp and change guard with Tekino, who was next to go on watch. But just as he was about to deactivate the clones he had scattered around the area, he suddenly felt one of his clones being destroyed, and received its memories. The clone that had been destroyed had been one he positioned near the border, to keep watch. Upon receiving the clone's memories, Naruto struggled to sort them out, as the memories were jumbled up, due to the clone's sudden death. But there was one image that stuck out clearly in his mind, the memory of an Iwa shinobi stabbing his clone with a tanto. "Shit," cursed Naruto, racing back to camp to warn the others. When he arrived he found Kushina and the rest of the group sitting around the campfire eating breakfast. "Right on time, Naruto," Kushina greeted, when she saw the blonde boy. "Come on over and have some breakfast. Tekino was just finishing up breakfast and was about to relieve you." "There's no time for that. Iwa shinobi are on their way here. One of the clones I sent to the edge of the border was destroyed." Upon learning that Iwa shinobi were on their way, everyone quickly dropped their food and began gathering the gear. "Do you know how many?" Hayama asked. "I'm not sure. My clone only saw one before it was destroyed." "That was probably a scout sent ahead of the group. We could be dealing with a squad." "If that's the case we should be able to handle them by ourselves," said Tekino. "If it's just a squad then yes, but there could be a lot more on the way," added Kosuke. Agreeing with the elderly man, Hayama turned to Kushina, who had seniority over him. "What do you suggest, Kushina-san?" We should investigate the enemy numbers first. We've had traps set up all around their area, so they won't be able to sneak up on us without triggering some, and should their numbers prove too large, we'll fall back to Gurnka and use the traps as cover. Nodding in agreement, High Armor and the others finished gathering the gear and headed off to intercept the Iwa shinobi. After traveling for several minutes, the Konoha groups arrived at an open field with high grass, which the Iwa shinobi would have to cross to reach them. The group didn't have to wait long, as they soon saw a pair of Iwa shinobi racing towards them across the grassy plain. Once they were in position, High Armor activated one of the traps in the field, causing steel wire to appear out of the ground and wrap themselves around the two, preventing them from moving. Appearing on a large boulder overlooking the two shinobi, High Armor asked the two shinobi what they were doing here. In response, he was met with a hail of shuriken and kunai, fired by the rest of the Iwa party, who suddenly appeared all around him. When the projectiles hit, High Armor exploded into a shower of leaves, revealing him to be a leaf clone. Having received his answer, the real High Armor, hidden within the nearby trees, gave Tokun the order to activate the rest of the traps, causing the field to explode and killing 4 Iwa shinobi. How many were there? Asked Tekino. I counted about 40, High Armor answered. Damn, that's more than a simple scouting or raiding party, that's a full platoon, said the hefty Jonin. We need to fall back to Gurnka and warn them, said Yamato. But we can still take them, said Naruto, we have the advantage here. No, answered Kushina, causing the rest of the group to look at her, as her normal cheerful demeanor gone and replaced her a stern serious one, which Yamato was all too familiar with from his Anbu days with Kushina. Taking on a group that large would not only be reckless but foolish as well, there could be more shinobi hidden elsewhere, and we don't know what level these shinobi are at. The Hokage's orders were clear, we are to strictly monitor the border and warn the base of any possible attacks, not engage them. Realizing that his teacher, guard, was right, Naruto grudgingly agreed, where the group soon took off, jumping through the treetops. Before long, the Iwa shinobi caught up to them and began to surround them. Crap, they got us hemmed in, said Naruto, when he saw the Iwa shinobi appear around them. The left and right are just diversions. Look up, warned High Armor. Heeding the man's warning, Naruto looked up and saw a large number of the enemy shinobi appear above them, unleashing a hail of kunai down on them. Before Naruto or any of the others could intercept, High Armor drew his Tanto sword and shouted, Shinkuken, vacuum sword, creating a large gust of wind, which deflected the kunai. After dealing with the projectiles, the groups arrived at their first line of defense, where Tokun activated the traps, causing a web of shinobi wire to appear out of the surrounding trees, catching 9 of the enemy shinobi. With the shinobi trap, Tekino activated the exploding notes ties to the steel wire, killing the shinobi. As the smoke from the explosion covered the area, High Armor turned to Kushina. Kushina-san, I suggest that we change strategy, at least one of us needs to make it back Gurnka. I stay behind and hold the enemy off while the rest of you leave. High Armor, we can't leave you here alone, Kushina argued, but before she could say anything more, Yamato spoke. He won't be, I'll stay here and support him, the rest of you should go while the smoke covers your retreat. Knowing that there wouldn't be any point in arguing with them, Kushina nodded, and ordered the rest of the group to follow after her. Naruto was the last to leave, being more than a little reluctant to leave Yamato and High Armor to fight the enemy shinobi by themselves. Once Kushina and the others had left, Yamato and High Armor waited for the smoke to dissipate, but before that could happen, the ground beneath them suddenly exploded. Shit. An earth jutsu, cursed High Armor, as he and Yamato were flung into the air and into the path of several kunai that appeared out of the smoke. Acting on pure instinct, the two Jonin replaced themselves with several wooden logs. Appearing atop a nearby tree, Yamato fired 3 wooden spikes from his arms. At the same time, High Armor, who was standing next to Yamato, used his Shinkuken technique to create another powerful gust of wind and combined it with Yamato's attack, drastically increasing the wood spike's speed and power, impaling the 3 shinobi. Moments after dealing with the 3 shinobi, the 2 Konoha Jonin found themselves surrounded by the remainder of the Iwa party, forcing them to stand back to one another. Damn it, this is costing us more than we expected, we've already lost a third of our men, and we've only separated 2 of them from the group, Kitsuki growled to himself, before turning to his second in command. Manga, I want you to take 4 men and make sure they don't leave here alive. The rest of you will come with me. With resounding, "Hi," the majority of the Iwa shinobi took after their leader. Yamato and Hayama attempted to follow, but were stopped when a kunai with an exploding note tied to it stabbed the tree they were on, forcing the two to jump off before it exploded, causing them to fall to the ground. After landing on the ground, Yamato and Hayama quickly found their path blocked by Mango and his 4 subordinates. Hoping to deal with the 5 Iwa shinobi quickly, Yamato and Hayama attempted the same combination they performed before, where Yamato fired a dozen or so wood spikes, which Hayama enhanced with his Shinkuken technique. Unfortunately this time the Iwa shinobi were ready. "Don't think we will fall for the same trick twice," shouted Manga as he created an earth wall to block the high-speed wooden spikes, which impaled themselves into the earth wall. After which Manga then took out a large number of exploding tags from his pouch and slammed them onto the earth wall. He then used the Chidokaku, moving earth core, technique to raise the ground underneath him and his comrades into the air and jumped behind the raised ground, where in an impressive feat of strength, pushed it into the earth wall and activated the exploding notes, creating a massive barrage of debris which flew straight towards Yamato and Hayama. With only seconds to act, Yamato created a large wooden dome around him and Hayama, protecting them from the flying debris. Upon seeing the large wooden dome, many of the Iwa shinobi were naturally surprised and confused when they saw another Konoha shinobi being able to perform Mokuton. "What's going on?" asked one of the surprised Iwa shinobi. "I thought the Senju heir was the only one who inherited the Shodai Hokage's Mokuton bloodline limit. Is he somehow related to the boy in Tsunade-sama?" Another one asked. "No," replied Manga, frowning after seeing Yamato's wood dome. "Recently there have been rumors going around about of another shinobi being about to perform Mokuton, through artificial means. I honestly didn't think they were true, but it seems they were. We should capture as well, we may be able to learn more about Mokuton if we bring both him and the boy to Iwa," said another Iwa shinobi. "And if we have to kill him, we still might be able to learn something from his body." Nodding in agreement, Manga then formed a single hand sign and slammed both his hands onto the ground and yelled, "Doten, Doskadake, Earth style, earth and stone bamboo shoot," creating 4 large spikes that sprung out of the ground and piercing the wood dome from 4 separate directions. Believing that Yamato and Hayama were dealt with, Manga ordered his men to recover the bodies, but before any of them could even take a step towards the dome, several large wooden roots suddenly sprung out of the ground and began to attack the Iwa shinobi, forcing them to scatter and move back. Shortly afterwards, Yamato emerged out of the ground with Hayama, revealing that they had escaped the dome right before Manga's earth spikes pierced the wooden dome. "This may prove more difficult than we thought," Manga said to himself, after he and his men regrouped. "You two won't be leaving this place alive." Smirking a little, Yamato replied, "That's funny, we were about to say the same thing to you." "Don't underestimate the shinobi of the hidden leaf," Hayama added coolly, as he readied his sword, before he and Yamato re-engaged the Iwa shinobi. With Naruto and the others. "Kushina-sensei, are you sure leaving Yamato-sensei and Hayama-san to hold off the enemy was the right thing to do?" Naruto asked, after leaving the 2 Konoha Jonin alone. "Have faith in him, Naruto," Kushina replied. "Neither of them will go down easily, Yamato especially." Deciding to trust his sensei, Naruto nodded and continued to jump through the treetops. Not long after Naruto heard Kosuke say, "It seems the enemy is quite strong in numbers." Turning, Naruto was surprised to see 20 Iwa shinobi following closely behind them. "God damn it, even with both Yamato and Hayama acting as a rearguard, they still had enough men to split up and pursue us," Kushina cursed. "Sensei, what'll we do?" Naruto yelled. "Kushina Teiko, they'll catch us before we reach the second defense line," shouted a worried Tekino. "We need more time, Naruto, can you buy us some?" asked Kushina. Enter Naruto OST Reikiri. "No prob," grinned Naruto, as he formed a single hand sign and shouted, "Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple shadow clone technique," creating several dozen shadow clones of himself, which quickly engaged the Iwa shinobi. Not long after Naruto and the others arrived at the second defensive line, but by then the Iwa shinobi had already destroyed his shadow clones and were nearing their location. "Crap, they've already destroyed all my clones, it won't be long before they're here," Naruto shouted, after sensing the last of his clones being destroyed. At the same time he began cursing how his clones had been barely able to slow the enemy down. "It doesn't matter, they did the job, now it's our turn," said Kushina drawing her katana, while Tekino took out some sealed scrolls to summon several katana, a crossbow and a small cannon. You and Kosuke should get out of here, Tekino and I will hold them off. Naruto of course tried to argue, saying that he would stay and fight, but before he could utter out a word, the blonde boy found his teacher's sword pointed directly at him, where said person was giving him a dark look, which would probably have made even the Kyuubi cower in fear. At that moment Naruto could have sworn he saw his teacher's eyes glow red. Are you challenging my authority, Naruto? Kushina asked coolly. But despite the calmness of her voice, Naruto could almost sense the lethal threat behind her words, which were only made all the more dangerous by the fact that she still had her katana pointed at him. No, of course not, Naruto replied nervously, while sweating up a storm. Good, now get going, otherwise it will be me who you'll be dealing with instead of the Iwa shinobi. Growled the woman, before removing her blade from Naruto's face. 5. Needing no further incentive, Naruto quickly grabbed Kosuke's arm and took off at a speed that would have made Guy and Lee green with envy. At the same time, a now nervous Tekino began to wonder if it wasn't too late for him to join Naruto and Kosuke, since he was now left alone with the she-devil known as Uzumaki Kushina. Got a problem? Asked Kushina, giving Tekino the same dark look she had given Naruto, after noticing that he was staring rather instantly at her. Nope, not me. No ma'am, no problem here, replied the nervous man, as he took a few steps away from the woman. At the same time he also began to feel a little sorry for the approaching Iwa shinobi, who had no idea of what they would soon be facing. Good, said Kushina, and she placed her sword on her shoulder, since here they come, pointing at the approaching Iwa shinobi. Readying his weapons, Tekino activated the surrounding traps, causing several explosions all around, scattering the enemy and filling the surrounding area with smoke. He then unleashed a barrage of projectiles and exploding notes on the enemy, killing 3 of them. As the smoke slowly dissipated, 2 Iwa shinobi jumped out but were quickly cut down by Kushina with her katana. But when she landed back on the ground, a 3rd Iwa shinobi appeared out of the ground and attempted to run her through with his sword. Sidestepping the sword stab, Kushina channeled her chakra into her blade and then spun around the young shinobi, slashing him in the back. But before she could finish him off, she was forced to jump away to avoid several kunai. After landing back on the ground she got a better look at her assailant who was standing directly in front of her. Kitsuki. It's been a while, Baradi Shinku no Karui, Bloody Crimson Fury, the Chushikage's son replied. Well, this is a surprise, I didn't think I would find you here of all places. What happened? Did you get into another fight with your daddy? Taunted the red-haired woman. Growling at the insult, Kitsuki formed several hand seals and slammed his fist into the ground, encasing it in rock, and then leaped forward, intending to crush the female Uzumaki with a single punch. Bringing up her blade, Kushina tried to block the powerful punch with her sword, but soon found herself being pushed back, due to the sheer power behind the punch. Realizing she was being overpowered, Kushina turned her body slightly and then spun around to Kitsuki's left, who fell forward after Kushina moved away, allowing her slash him on the side. Grunting in pain, Kitsuki quickly jumped away before Kushina could slash him again. It seems you've improved since we last fought, growled the large man, holding his side in pain. You haven't seen anything yet, yelled Kushina as she charged forward to re-engage Kitsuki. Acting fast, Kitsuki countered by using Ritsudo Tensho, tearing earth turning palm, causes the ground surrounding Kushina to spiral inwards on itself, forcing the redhead to jump into the air to avoid being buried alive. As she hung in midair, 4 Iwa shinobi appeared around her and attempted to stab her with their katana from all sides. But before they could, several chains erupted from her body, impaling one, while knocking the other 3 away. When she landed back on the ground, 2 more Iwa nin appeared out of the ground around her. The first grabbed her from behind, preventing her from moving or fighting back, while the second attempted to run her through with a kunai. Before this could happen, the Iwa nin holding Kushina was hit in the back with a kunai, causing him to lose his hold over her. Allowing her to move out of the way, second Iwa nin, who was hit by another kunai in the chest, courtesy of Tekino, who then went back with dealing with the remaining Iwa shinobi. Signaling her thanks, Kushina then jumped to her left, avoiding a deadly punch to the face from Kitsuki's earth-covered fist, who tried to take advantage of her distraction. After avoiding the attack, Kushina then countered by throwing several kunai with exploding notes attached to them. Realizing he wouldn't be able to avoid them, Kitsuki created a large earth wall to block the projectiles, but was blown back when the exploding notes activated and destroyed the wall. Gua. Damn it, growled the bulky Iwanin as he checked himself for any serious injuries. At the same time, the three Iwa shinobi from earlier appeared next to him, preventing Kushina from taking advantage of the situation. Kitsuki Teiko, are you alright? Asked one Iwa shinobi. I'm fine, snarled the man, picking himself up. We'll assist you and, but before the shinobi could finish, Kitsuki responded. No, you'll stay out of this, she's mine. But Teiko, replied the Iwanin, but before he could argue further, Kitsuki continued. I have a more important mission for you three. You're to go after the old man and the boy and make sure that they don't escape. Knowing that there would be no point in arguing with their captain, the three shinobi nodded and took after Naruto and Kosuke. Oh no you don't, shouted Kushina, as she took off after the shinobi. But before she could catch up to them, a large earth wall appeared in front of her, blocking her path. You're not going anywhere, Uzumaki, Kitsuki sneered, you and I still have some unfinished business. Growling, Kushina spun around to face the son of the Chushikage, knowing that she'd have to deal with him first, before she could help Kosuke and Naruto. Watch your back, Naruto, Kushina said to herself as she prepared to re-engage Kitsuki. End Naruto OST Reikiri. With Naruto and Kosuke. After leaving Kushina and Tekino to deal with the perusing Iwa shinobi, Naruto and Kosuke made their way up a small mountain top. Making their way up, Kosuke noticed Naruto looking back at direction they came from, where the others were fighting. In the distance, they could still make out sounds of explosions, indicating that Kushina and the others were still battling with the Iwa shinobi. Placing a comforting hand on Naruto's shoulder, the old man smiled kindly at the young boy. Do not fret, Naruto-san, Kushina-san and the others are all capable and highly skilled shinobi, they'll be fine. Yay, I know, Naruto replied, knowing firsthand just how strong his two teachers were. I just can't help but worry. I understand, but they chose to stay behind so that we could warn Gurnkha base of this attack. We must respect their wishes and do our duty. Knowing that Kosuke was right, Naruto nodded and then followed after the elderly shinobi. Not long after though, Naruto and Kosuke found their path blocked by three Iwa shinobi. My, it seems Iwa has recruited some awfully swift shinobi, Kosuke remarked, upon seeing the three Iwa nins. Damn, how the hell did they get ahead of us with us noticing? Naruto asked. Before Kosuke could answer, the three shinobi threw several shuriken at him, which Kosuke deflected, using his wok as a shield and then threw it at the three shinobi. Unafraid of the flying cooking vessel, the three Iwa shinobi let it fly past them, not knowing that hidden behind the wok was Kosuke. Once he was behind the three, Kosuke appeared from behind the wok and threw three kunai, hitting two of the Iwa nins in the back of the head. The third kunai though was caught by the lead Iwa nin, being the most skilled of the three, as he turned to look at Kosuke. Naruto attempted to take advantage of the Iwa nin's distraction and knock him out with an enhanced punch. But before his punch could connect, Naruto moved his arm to block a strong kick from the Iwa shinobi that sent him skidding back. Recovering quickly, Naruto prepared to strike back, but before he could, Naruto watched Kosuke wave his sword back and forth. As Kosuke continued, his arms suddenly started to multiple into a dozen waving swords, confusing both Naruto and the Iwa nin. Unable to move, the Iwa nin was left completely open to attack, and was swiftly cut down by Kosuke. Whoa, what was that? Naruto asked, having never seen a kenjutsu technique like that. Was that some sort of genjutsu? Close, it's actually a genkenjutsu, illusionary sword technique. The technique is called Konoha Ru Yanagi, tree leaf style willow. The technique involves a user waving his or her sword back and forth, which when seen by the target locks them in a genjutsu which causes them to hallucinate multiple waving arms. The movement resembles that of a willow tree blowing in the wind, hence the name. Once an enemy is caught in the genjutsu, they are unable to move, making it easy for the user to dispatch them. When Kosuke finished with the explanation, Naruto couldn't help but be impressed with the elderly man's skill, and wondered if he could get Kosuke to teach him it as well. After making their way down the small mountain, Naruto decided to use his Chakra no Parasu, Chakra Pulse, technique to make sure that there were no more Iwa shinobi nearby. Watching Naruto search for enemies by touching the ground with his two fingers, Kosuke couldn't help but be reminded of the Nadaime Hokage, who did same thing when he was locating enemies. Once Naruto was sure that the surrounding area was clear of enemy shinobi, the two took off into the forest. But not long after, Kosuke noticed something was up when saw a large flock of birds flying above him, chirping loudly, as if they had been scared by something, ahead. Frowning, Naruto-san, please use your technique again to see if there are any enemies close by. Curious by Kosuke's question, Naruto did as he was asked, and jumped off the tree he had been standing on. He then touched the ground with his index finger and released a large burst of chakra into the ground, where he sensed a large group of shinobi heading towards them. How did you know? Naruto asked, as he turned to the elderly man. When you've been a genin for 50 years, you pick up a few tricks, Kosuke replied cryptically, before asking, do you know how many there are and how far they are away? About 30, and they're less than 500 meters away, heading straight for us. Then we must move quickly, Kosuke said, all humor gone from his voice. Nodding, Naruto followed after the elderly man, where they raced through the treetops as quickly as they could. Shortly after though, Kosuke turned to Naruto, Naruto-san, you should go on ahead to Gonka base, while I lead the enemy away. But we can outrun them. No we cannot, there are simply too many of them for us to outrun, Kosuke replied. Unwilling leave the elderly shinobi to face the many enemy shinobi alone. Naruto tried to argue, but before he could even say a word, Kosuke cut him off. Naruto-san, a shinobi's first duty is to his village. One of us need to get to Gonka base and warn them of this attack. We also must show Iwa that despite the battle with Suna and Oto, Konoha's military strength is still intact. So please go while there is still time. After jumping off the tree they were on, Naruto turned to elderly man, who just smiled, we're counting on you Naruto. Growling in frustration, Naruto nodded, where the two of them separated, Kosuke headed east leaving tracks that the Iwa shinobi could follow. Naruto on the other hand head south toward Gonka base, while at the same time making sure that he left no tracks. Not long after, the Iwa squad arrived and stopped where Naruto and Kosuke split up. Studying the ground, one of the Iwa turned to their leader, Aotsuki. Their tracks showed that they stopped here for a moment and then headed east, towards Konoha village. Yes, but only one of them is headed that way, the other has gone south towards Gonka base, said an Iwa Kunoiki, who was also the squad censor. Turning to Aotsuki, another Iwa shinobi asked, should we split up and follow them both? No, answered the female jonin. The princess and her team are in that direction, they can deal with the person heading to Gonka base. We'll go after the one heading to Konoha. Shouldn't we at least send some of us to follow after the other shinobi heading for Gonka, and support Kuretsuki-san and her team? Asked another Iwa nin, who wasn't entirely convinced that this was a wise decision. Kitsuki Teiko did state that we were to join up with her squad and surround the enemy. Not really caring about the Chushikage's granddaughter, the female jonin shrugged. Hey, the princess is a big girl, she and her squad should be able to handle one Konoha shinobi. If not, well she clearly wasn't as good as her daddy thought she was. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to convince his superior, the Iwa shinobi just nodded. After which he and the others took off after Kosuke. Several miles away from where Naruto and Kosuke split up, Kuretsuki and her team waited for any sign of their target. Hidden in a tree, Kuretsuki scratched her 8 line on the bark of the tree, one for each hour that she had been waiting. How much longer are we going to have to wait? Moments after thinking this, Kuretsuki heard the leaves rustling nearby, along with the sounds of movement. Readying her kunai, Kuretsuki prepared to attack, but before she could, the approaching person revealed himself to be Akatsuki. Seeing her friend and second in command, Kuretsuki lowered her weapon. Akatsuki, you idiot, I nearly killed you. She had sent out her friend along with 2 others to search for any sign of the Konoha shinobi. Although this was the most direct route to Gonka, there were other paths that their target could have taken. Sorry, said the bulky Iwa shinobi with a goofy-looking smirk before becoming serious. I just got back and thought I should give my report. And? Asked the girl. No sign of the target or anyone else for a couple of miles, and none of the traps that we set up in the other areas were tripped. They could have passed them without triggering any of them, Kuretsuki replied. But Akatsuki shook his head. I don't think so, we set up enough traps so that no one could get through them without setting off at least one of them. Even if they had, they would have reached Gonka by now and warned them of our attack. I met Ishiki on my way back and he told me that he saw no sign of anyone coming from there. What about Roku? Kuretsuki asked. I haven't seen him. Frowning, Kuretsuki was about to reply, but before she and Akatsuki noticed something appear out of the corner of their eyes. Turning, they saw another Iwa appear before them, who they quickly recognized as Roku. Roku was a young man in his early 20s with light-colored, spiky hair. He wore a standard Awagakure shinobi outfit complete with his right sleeve missing as well as the forehead protector of the Iwa. "Hey Roku," greeted Akatsuki, "your ears must have been burning. We were just talking about you." "Yay, well, I got some news. I just saw our target," the Iwa nin replied, gaining both Kuretsuki and Akatsuki attention. "What? When? Where? How far?" Kuretsuki asked, bombarding the Iwa shinobi with several different questions at once. "About 15 minutes away, right behind me, heading straight here." "How many are with him?" "He's alone. Guess your dad and the others must have taken care of the rest of them," said Akatsuki, turning to his female friend, who nodded. "Did you see Ichushi and her group?" Kuretsuki asked, to which Roku shook his head. "I didn't see them, but they could have been further behind him, or been delayed." "It doesn't matter," replied Kuretsuki, shaking her head. "We don't need that bitch's help anyway, he's alone. Get the others ready and we'll ambush him once he gets here." Nodding, the two Iwa shinobi took off to get alert the others, leaving Kuretsuki alone with her thoughts. This should be interesting. Shortly after Roku returned with his news of Naruto's arrival, the Iwa shinobi positioned themselves around the area and waited for him to appear. The group did not have to wait for very long as Naruto soon appeared, racing through the treetops. Once he was in position, Kuretsuki activated the exploding note on the tree branch that Naruto landed on, destroying the branch, causing Naruto to fall to the ground. Recovering quickly, Naruto landed on his feet, but no sooner had he landed on the ground, a pair of hands sprung out of the ground underneath him and grabbed his feet, holding him in place. At the same time, two other Iwa shinobi appeared out of the ground and attempted to restrain Naruto. But before they could grab hold on him, Naruto charged his fist up with chakra and slammed into the ground, pulverizing the ground and crushing the Iwa shinobi underneath him, while forcing the remaining two to move back due to the flying debris. When the dust settled, Kuretsuki and the rest of her squad unleashed a shower of shuriken from the treetops. They were then blocked when Naruto created a wooden dome around himself, protecting him from harm. Shortly after the wooden dome appeared, Kuretsuki and the others threw several kunai with exploding notes tied to them and detonated them, destroying the wooden dome. But when the smoke from the explosion cleared, they saw no sign of Naruto, instead just a hole in the ground. "Crap, he's gone underground," thought the dark-haired girl before jumping to the ground and using Kaido Shikutsu, opening earth-rising excavation, creating a cone-shaped mound, which shot Naruto out of the ground and into the air. "Gotcha," smiled the Chushikage's daughter, but her smile almost immediately fell when she saw vines shoot out of Naruto's right arm and wrap around a nearby tree branch, allowing him to swing onto another tree branch, where he then took off. "Don't let him get away," shouted Kuretsuki as she and her squad took off after the Senju heir. After chasing after him for about 10 minutes, Kuretsuki and her squad finally caught up with him when Kuretsuki hit him in the leg with a shuriken, causing him to fall into a small clearing. Wasting no time, the Iwa shinobi quickly surrounded him and subdued him with some ninja wire, where they channeled a low stream of lightning chakra through the wire, causing Naruto's muscles to go stiff and numb, preventing him from moving or using his enhanced strength. "Hey, we've got him," Kuretsuki said to herself as she slowly walked up to Naruto, who was growling in pain from the lightning being sent into his body. "We meet again, Senju." Naruto. Looking up, Naruto glared back at the girl. "Nice to see you too, Urasu. Or should I say Kuretsuki?" "Oh, so you know who I am." "I'm impressed," replied the girl, somewhat surprised by the fact that Naruto knew her real name. "When were you on to me?" "From the moment I first saw you," Naruto retorted coolly, despite the pain he was under. Back when he was recovering from the invasion, the Sandaime had told him how the Anbu watching Kuretsuki and her partner had lost sight of them during the chaos of the attack. Later he brought back an album with pictures full of all the known Iwa shinobi and asked him to go through it to see if he recognized anyone. After several hours of looking through photos, he finally recognized her. When he showed her picture to the Sandaime, he revealed that Kuretsuki was the granddaughter of the Sandaime Chushikage, Ryotenban no Onoki, Onoki of both scales. When Naruto learned who Kuretsuki really was, he was surprised to say the least. He had never expected the girl he had met in the streets was the granddaughter of the Sandaime Chushikage, one of the oldest and strongest shinobi alive today. From what he learned from his godfather's spy network, Kuretsuki was a Chunin-ranked shinobi, highly skilled for her age and possessed Yoten, lava release, like the Godai Mizukage. Well, it doesn't really matter now, we got what we came for, shrugged Kuretsuki. You're our prisoner now. Wait, are you saying that this entire attack was just so that you could capture me? Pretty much, Kuretsuki replied. And now that we have you, we'll be taking you back to our village. Really? Asked Naruto, where to the surprise of Kuretsuki and her squad he began to smile. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, but I have no intention of going anywhere near your village. Thinking that Naruto was just trying to act tough, Kuretsuki sneered back at the blonde boy. Is that so? Well, how exactly do you intend to escape? By doing this, Naruto answered before disappearing in a puff of smoke, revealing him to actually be a shadow clone. What the? Shouted one of the Iwa shinobi. Shit. He's a clone, yelled a kunoichi. We've been had, shouted Kuretsuki, but before she or the rest of her squad could search for him, the real Naruto appeared out of the treetops, directly above the Iwa squad and dropped a dozen smoke bombs down on top of them. As soon as the bombs hit the ground they exploded and began to fill the entire clearing with gas. Scatter! Roared Kuretsuki as she jumped out of the clearing, covering both her mouth and nose at the same time, so not to breathe in the gas. Unfortunately, the majority of her squad did not escape in time and inhaled some of the gas, causing them to lose consciousness. After escaping the gas, Akatsuki and Roku immediately began to look around to see if anyone else had escaped the gas. Looking around, Roku suddenly yelled, "Look out!" as he pushed Akatsuki out of the path of several senbon needles that appeared out of the gas cloud. But for his trouble, Roku was hit in the chest by the needles, causing his entire body going numb and collapse from the poison on the needles. Roku! Cried Akatsuki, upon seeing his friend being hit by a hail of senbon needles and fall to the ground. But before he could go to his aid, Akatsuki was forced to jump back when a pair of arms popped out of the ground and tried to grab his legs. Moments later, Naruto appeared out of the ground and was then joined by a clone, which had just jumped out of a nearby tree. With only seconds to act before Naruto and his clone would attack, Akatsuki took out a handful of smoke bombs and threw them across the ground, covering the area in smoke. After making their way out of the smoke cloud, Naruto and his clone suddenly found themselves under attack by a large creature made out of rock. The creature of course caught them by surprise at first, but they quickly regained their senses when they realized that the creature was a rock golem, and leaped back. At the same time, the real Naruto threw an exploding note at the rock creature, where as soon as it latched on, Naruto detonated the note, destroying the creature. But as soon as they had done this, Naruto felt himself being pushed out of the way by his clone, saving him from a barrage of kunai from Kuretsuki, who had just arrived. Damn, that was close, Naruto said to himself as he watched his clone disappear, after being hit by Kuretsuki's kunai. Moments later, Akatsuki appeared out of the smoke carrying Roku. You okay, Akatsuki? Kuretsuki called out, while keeping both eyes on Naruto, who remained where he was, watching both of them. Yay, I'm fine, but the others are all out of it thanks to the knockout gas he used, Akatsuki answered. Roku isn't doing much better. Senju must have covered the needles with some sort of drug. Frowning at the news, Kuretsuki knew that their job just got a lot harder. Both she and Akatsuki had seen firsthand just how strong Naruto was and knew that capturing him by themselves would be difficult to say the least, if at all possible. Guess we've got no other choice. Akatsuki. It's time to go to Plan B. Realizing what this meant, Akatsuki nodded and placed his friend down behind a tree for safety. Once he had done this, he preformed several hand seals and slammed both his hands down onto the ground, creating a massive earth dome around his unconscious comrades, protecting them from what was to come. Seeing that situation was not in his favor, Naruto decided the best course of action was to make a tactical retreat to a more favorable location. Before either Iwa shinobi could attack, two kunai appeared out of both Naruto's coat sleeves, which he then threw at the two. Both Akatsuki and Kuretsuki were able to evade the projectiles easily enough, but when they did they noticed the small flash bombs tied to the kunai, which Naruto deactivated, creating a blinding flash of light that temporarily blinded the two. When the light from the flash died down, Kuretsuki quickly scanned the forest for any sign of the Senju heir. Shit, we lost him. No wait, he's over there, Akatsuki yelled, pointing at the retreating Naruto, leaping across the treetops. Wasting no time, the two Iwa nins quickly took off after the Konoha Chunin, where they soon caught up to him. Once they were close enough, Kuretsuki threw a kunai with an exploding note tied to it, destroying that branch Naruto had just stepped on, causing him to fall. Recovering quickly, Naruto preformed a mid-air flip so that he would land back onto his feet. He then proceeded to race across the ground, trying to put as much distance between the two as possible. But before he could get very far, he found his path blocked by a large earth dome that formed around him, leaving only a single opening directly above him to escape from. But at that moment Kuretsuki appeared over the hole and spat out a massive stream of fire down into the hole, with the dome burning everything inside the dome to ash. He's finished, Kuretsuki declared as she jumped off the dome and landed next to Akatsuki. You think we got him? Of course, replied Kuretsuki. There was only way out of there, and he didn't get by me. Even if he avoided a direct hit from my attack, the flames would have enveloped everything within the dome. Not to mention the heat alone from them would have killed him for sure. No one could survive that. The kid is roasted. You think the Chushikage will be mad that we killed him? Our mission was to capture him after all. It'll be fine, Kuretsuki said, waving her friend off. Gigi said that if we couldn't capture him, we were to kill him. Shrugging, Akatsuki waited for the fire inside the dome to die down. Once they had, he lowered his earth dome so that they could collect Naruto's body. Although the body would be badly burned from the flames, it still had value to their village, where it could be examined and possibly help them understand and unlock the hidden power of Mokuton. But when the dome was brought down, instead of seeing a charred corpse, they only saw scorched earth. Where's the body? Could it have been destroyed by the flames? Asked the confused Akatsuki. It couldn't have, my flames weren't hot enough to do that. Exclaimed Kuretsuki, who was just as confused by the situation as he was. But that was when she saw the large hole in the center of the scorched ground. Before she could say anything about it, a pair of hands suddenly popped out of the ground and grabbed onto her ankles and pulling her down into the ground, leaving only her head above it. Moments later, Naruto popped out of the ground having used Moguragako no Jutsu, hiding like a mole technique, to escape Kuretsuki's fire attack. After that, he waited for the two Iwa shinobi to feel safe enough to let down the ground, allowing him to immobilize Kuretsuki using the Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu, double suicide decapitation technique. With Kuretsuki momentarily disabled, Naruto quickly turned to Akatsuki, who had just created another one of his rock golems and had it attack. After sidestepping the rock golem's punch, Naruto hit the creature with an enhanced knee kick to the stomach, causing the creature to shatter in pieces. But as soon as he had destroyed the creature, Akatsuki used the Doryo Dango, Earth Mausoleum Dumpling, technique to lift the surface of the very ground up and hold up into the air. Shit, was all that Naruto could say before Akatsuki threw the massive mound of earth at him. Gathering his chakra into his fist, Naruto waited until the mound of earth was right on top of him and shattered it with a single punch, sending debris flying everywhere, forcing Akatsuki to move around to avoid them. At the same time, Naruto maneuvered around Akatsuki using the rubble as a cover to sneak behind him. By the time the Iwa Nin realized what he was doing, it was already too late, as Naruto appeared behind him and hit with an enhanced spinning heel kick to the face, knocking the large shinobi out and sending him crashing into several large trees. That's one down, Naruto told himself, before he was assaulted by several shuriken flying towards him. Acting fast, Naruto gathered his chakra into his right fist again and pulverized the ground with a supercharged punch, causing rubble to fly everywhere, deflecting the projectiles, while creating a large dust cloud at the same time. Using the cloud as a screen, Naruto maneuvered towards the nearby trees in an attempt to find cover while locating his assailant. But before he could reach the trees, a large earth wall appeared in front of him, blocking his path. No sooner had the wall appeared, Naruto was hit by several large boulder-sized clay-like bombs, which encased his body and hardened around him. Damn it, what is this? Naruto shouted as she struggled to free himself. Hey, like it? Asked a grinning Kuretsuki, appearing out the now dissipating dust cloud, having dug herself from the ground. It's one of my clan's special techniques called Sekaigyo, quicklime congealing. The moment it hits something, it begins harden to the point where it becomes as hard as cement. It's pretty handy when it comes to capturing tricky shinobi like you. Before Naruto could make any kind of a retort, Kuretsuki punched him in the face, knocking him out, or at least she thought she did, until Naruto reverted into mud, revealing him to be an earth clone. At the same time, several wooden tentacles sprung out of the ground and began to wrap themselves around Kuretsuki and lifted her up into the air. With only moments to act before she was completely bound, the young Iwakanachi formed two quick hand seals and spewed out a long stream of fire, aiming right for the base of the tentacles. causing them to burn and collapse, freeing her. Once she was safely back on the ground, the real Naruto appeared directly above and preformed his mother's signature Sutenkyaku, heavenly foot of pain technique, which Kurotsuki barely evaded by jumping away, causing Naruto to instead hit the ground. Shit, that was too close, the young girl said to herself as she held her head in pain after a piece of debris had hit her. Looking at the now destroyed ground, the dark-haired girl couldn't help but shiver slightly at how close she had come to being hit by the blonde's attack. If that attack had landed, I would have been splattered all over the forest. Hoping to at least disable Naruto, Kurotsuki fired another round of quicklime at the Senju air, which he skillfully evaded, leaving much of the ground covered in the quicklime. But what he didn't know was that this was all part of Kurotsuki's plan. After 3 quick hand signs, Kurotsuki brought her hand to her mouth and shot out a massive jet of water from her mouth, aiming right for the quicklime, causing it to spread further across the ground. Naruto tried to avoid being caught in the substance, but misjudged how quickly it could spread as he leapt away, causing him to land on the lime, where it quickly hardened around his feet. Realizing he was stuck, Naruto cursed his short-sightedness, but when he tried to free himself, Kurotsuki fired another large ball of quicklime, trapping his right hand and leg together in a thick layer of condensed lime. "You're not getting away that easily, Senju," Kurotsuki yelled, before firing another condensed ball of quicklime at Naruto after noticing him pull something out of his utility belt with his remaining free hand, pinning it to his hip. But as soon as the lime hardened, it shattered, and revealed a yellow energy blade, which hummed loudly in the air. Recognizing the blade, the Uwa Kunoiki could only stare in shock. "That's the Raijin no Ken, sword of the Thunder God, the sword of Konoha's Nadaime Hokage." "But that's impossible. Konoha lost that sword to Am, so how? And why didn't he use it during the Chunin exam?" Taking advantage of Kurotsuki's surprise, Naruto shattered the lime covering his other hand and leg with the Raijin. After which he then gathered his chakra into his right fist and punched the lime-covered ground, destroying it. Once he was free, Naruto leapt forward and attempted to slash Kurotsuki with the lightning sword. But before he could reach her, the Uwa Kunoiki came to her senses and leapt onto the branch of a nearby tree. "Damn it, I let myself to get distracted, but still, nobody told me that he had that thing, nobody." Cursing her luck and the poor intel, Kurotsuki decided to make the best of the situation and tried to capture Naruto again with her Sekaigyo. Naruto although was ready for this and used the Raijin no Ken to split the ball of lime in half, causing it fly past him. After which he then leapt into the air and attempted to slash Kurotsuki again, but missed and instead cut the branch she had been standing on before jumping into another tree. This continued for several minutes as Naruto chased after the girl, leaping from one tree to the next. Kurotsuki tried to fight back or force Naruto back with several different earth, water and fire ninjutsu. But none of her attacks were strong enough to stop him, as Naruto cut through them all with the Raijin no Ken. At the same time, Naruto made several attempts to capture the older girl by using the same electrical ring technique that he had used in their fight. Sadly, the technique proved more difficult than Naruto had expected and instead released several blasts of lightning at Kurotsuki, forcing the girl to seek cover each time. Eventually, Kurotsuki was able to put some distance between her and Naruto by throwing several flash bombs into his face, blinding him temporarily. Shortly after, Kurotsuki made her way to a large clearing in the forest, where she planned to set a trap for the Senju heir. As she expected, it didn't take Naruto long to locate her, where he jumped off the tree he had appeared on and landed in the middle of the clearing. Decided to give up? Naruto asked, although remained alert at the same time, expecting some sort of trap. The question of course received a snort from Kurotsuki. "Hardly, but you should." "Oh, and why's that?" asked Naruto, slowly making his way towards her, leaving only a few meters between them. "This," replied the girl, forming a signal hand sign and shouted, "Doten, Doryuso, Earth style, Earth flow spears," causing several Earth spears to shoot out of the ground. Thanks to his quick reactions, which he developed from years of bombardment training with his mother, Naruto was able to evade the Earth spears easily enough. But as he continued to avoid the Earth spikes, he noticed that Kurotsuki was driving him to a specific location in the clearing with her Earth spikes. Fearing that he was being led into a trap, Naruto began to form hand seals for a jutsu, but just as he had finished the last hand sign, Kurotsuki activated the exploding notes that she had hidden underneath the ground, causing them to explode right underneath Naruto. Keeping her guard up, Kuretsuki waited for the smoke from the explosion to die down, knowing that Naruto could easily be waiting for her to lower her guard. When the smoke finally dissipated, she saw Naruto in the center of a small crater, lying face down on the ground, motionless. Wanting to make sure that she had actually killed him this time, the young Kunoichi cautiously made her way over the blonde and went to check his pulse. Feeling nothing, she let out a sigh of relief and smiled, but the moment she had done this, Naruto exploded into a shower of leaves, which quickly began to circle around her like a whirlwind. Surprised by what had happened, it took her a moment to realize that she had been caught in a genjutsu. Knowing what she needed to do, Kuretsuki used the genjutsu kai technique to disrupt the illusion, causing it to fade away. Moments after canceling the illusion, she saw Naruto appear out of the tree line, charging straight at her with the Raijin no Ken in hand. Acting fast, Kuretsuki raced through several hand seals and shouted, "Doten, Doryuso!" creating another earth spike out of the ground, directly in front of Naruto, forcing him to stop. At the same time, 3 more spikes appeared out of the ground and surrounded him, trapping him in between them. Gotcha, thought the girl before she watched Naruto fade away right in front of her, at which point she then found the earth spike surrounding her. Disoriented and confused by how her own attack had been turned against her, Kuretsuki was left completely open to attack. Before she could understand what had just happened, she found her hands and legs all bound by several dozen vines that sprung out from a small seed underneath her, causing her to fall onto her side. Kuretsuki tried to struggle against the vines, but found her strength leaving her. It was then that she realized that the vines were somehow draining her of her chakra. At the same time, Naruto appeared out from within one of the trees and made his way over to the restrained Iwa Kunoichi. I wouldn't bother if I were you, as you've already guessed by now, those vines aren't ordinary ones. Once they appear, they latch onto the nearest person to them and wrap themselves around the person, meaning you. The vines then siphon your chakra and use it to fuel the buds that you see growing on them, filling them with your chakra and causing them to bloom into flowers, and if that happens, you're dead. Glaring at Naruto, Kuretsuki struggled to break free of the vines, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't, and felt herself getting weaker and weaker with each passing minute. I suggest that you stop struggling. The more you do, the faster the vines will drain you of your chakra. Damn you, snarled the girl, how did you survive the explosion and turn my attack against me? Simple, right before you activated your exploded notes, I used a genjutsu to have you detonate the notes prematurely and made you think you'd got me. After which I then had you trap yourself in your own technique. But I dispelled your genjutsu. Kuretsuki retorted, but that was when the realization hit her. She had made the false assumption that Naruto had only used 1 genjutsu, when in fact he had used 2, using them again, Niju Kokoni Arazu no Jutsu, demonic illusion, double false surroundings technique, hiding the second genjutsu in the first. When she dispelled the first genjutsu, she fell into his second genjutsu. Furious with how she fell for such a simple trick, the girl cursed herself over and over again in her head, all the while forgetting about Naruto, who was busy contemplating what he would do with the girl. His first option was to simply kill her, but he quickly pushed aside any such thoughts, not just because he disliked killing. But there was also the fact that she was the Chushikage's granddaughter. Killing her had consequences, despite having every right to kill her, given how she was an invader and had tried to kill him. Naruto knew that if he killed her, the Chushikage could declare war on Konoha. His second option was to bring her back to Konoha, where she could be used as a hostage to get Iwa to agree to stop their raids on their borders. But there was no guarantee that would work, since he had no idea what type of man the Chushikage was, where he could easily back out of the deal once he got her back. There was also a good chance that taking her back to Konoha could escalate matters as well, where the Chushikage would send his forces to Konoha to rescue her, causing all-out war. He also doubted that she would hold much information that would make it worth holding her, since she was only a Chunin, and being the Chushikage's granddaughter did not mean she would possess vital intelligence or secrets. The third option was to simply knock her out and leave her here for her comrades to collect her. That way they would be too busy dealing with her to come after him, especially since they had already basically failed their mission in capturing him. After going over his options, Naruto figured the third option seemed the best. Although the second option was the most appealing, there was no guarantee that he would succeed in bringing her back to Konoha by himself, especially with the possibility that the area was still filled with Iwa shinobi. Carrying her around would slow him down and make it difficult to fight back should he be pursued, and he had no idea when reinforcement from Gurnka would arrive, having sent word to the base by another clone after he first encountered Kuretsuki and her squad. So leaving her was the best possible option, but even so, Naruto felt he needed to send Iwa a message, so that they would know what happens the next time they would come after him. When Kuretsuki saw Naruto take out a kunai from his utility belt, she immediately assumed the worst. But to her credit, she showed no fear and stared back defiantly at her would-be killer. Go ahead, do it. I'm not going to beg for my life, so get it over with. But to her surprise, instead of stabbing her with the blade, he used it to cut the vines off her. What are you doing? Aren't you going to kill me? To Kuretsuki's confusion, Naruto just laughed at her question. Who said anything about killing you? I don't kill unless I have no other choice, and I have already beaten you, so I don't need to kill you. The vines have already absorbed most of your remaining chakra, so you're no longer a threat to me. Kuretsuki just scoffed at this. You really are a naive little brat, if you believe that. In the shinobi world it's kill or be killed, that kind softness has no place in it, it makes you weak. Maybe, but I'm also a medic and I was taught to value life, and in case you forgot, this naive little brat whooped your sorry ass, so what does that say about you? Retorted Naruto, smirking when he saw Kuretsuki scowl. Besides, hurting people is easy, anyone can do that. To be great you need to know how to heal people first. Huh, and what idiot told you that? Kuretsuki asked with a haunting laugh, which almost immediately ceased with steely gaze from Naruto. My mother, that's who, and she was told the same thing by her grandfather, the Shodai Hokage. So you tell me, were they weak idiots for believing in that? Kuretsuki of course said nothing, having no comeback to Naruto's retort, since only a fool would try to deny the strength and skill of the Slug Princess, and only a blind fool would doubt the Shodai Hokage's strength. Even her grandfather acknowledged the Konoha founder's strength, crediting him as the most powerful shinobi of his era. Her grandfather even went on to claim that the Shodai Hokage's prowess in battle was so great that no one living today could match him. Compared to him, or his arch-rival Uchiha Madara, all 5 Kages were nothing more than mere infants. Kuretsuki on the other hand remained skeptical at just how powerful the Shodai Hokage was. She didn't that doubt the man was powerful, and was probably the strongest shinobi of his time. It was just the way her grandfather went out about the two that made her think that he was over-exaggerating their powers, making them seem like ancient gods of battle, or something out of a fairy tale book. So if you're not going to kill me, then what do you intend to do? The girl asked, a question she quickly regretted when she saw a dark sinister-looking smile appear on Naruto's face. A smile that was well known and dreaded by those, Kokjirayako, who knew his mother. Seeing this smile, the dark-haired girl suddenly felt very, very nervous. After splitting up with Naruto, Kosuke led the perusing Iwa shinobi on a merry chase around the forest in the hope of buying Naruto more time to warn the base. But after an hour of running through the forest, the Iwa partly finally cornered him by splitting into 3 separate groups and outflanked him. Surrounded and with nowhere to run, Kosuke decided to stand his ground and fight, engaging the Iwa nins in close combat. Despite being vastly outnumbered, Kosuke was able to hold his own, killing several shinobi with his short sword. But after killing his 8 shinobi he was forced to jump into the air when an unknown assailant attacked him with an earth ninjutsu. Seeing an opportunity, several of the Iwa shinobi threw their kunai at Kosuke, thinking he was helpless in midair. But he quickly proved them wrong when he deflected most of the projectiles with his sword and wok. Sadly a few did hit him, wounding him and causing him to lose his sword before finally crashing into a nearby river. After falling into the river, Kosuke was immediately assaulted again by the unknown assailant, who used another powerful earth ninjutsu in an attempt to bury him under an avalanche of dirt. Acting fast, Kosuke used the Suijinheki, water formation wall, technique to create a large wall of water to block the earth avalanche. But once he was out of the water, he came under assault again by the Iwa shinobi using the Iwa Nadae no Jin, rock avalanche formation, to overwhelm him with sheer numbers. Realizing what they were trying to do, Kosuke countered with Shuriken Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone technique, which he learned from the Sandaime Hokage, turning one Shuriken into hundreds. With it Kosuke was able to take out the entire group, but before he could even acknowledge what he had done, he suddenly felt his foot being stabbed. Looking down, he saw an Iwa shinobi emerge from the ground, holding the kunai that stabbed his foot. But before he could do anything about it, 2 more Iwa nins appeared out of the ground and surrounded him. With only seconds to act, Kosuke separated his leg, revealing it to be a prosthetic with a blade hidden inside it. He then used the blade to stab the first Iwanin and slash at the other two before jumping away, leaving the prosthetic limb behind, which exploded seconds later, killing the 3 shinobi. After landing on the other side of the river, Kosuke fell to his knees, exhausted from fighting so many shinobi. But his attention soon turned to the tree line on the opposite side of the river, when he heard someone call out to him. Having trouble, old man? Looking up, Kosuke saw an Iwa kunoichi walking towards him. The kunoichi had long brown-colored hair which she had tied to form a ball on top of her head, using what appeared to be a knitting needle, while 2 large locks with darkened tips frame the remainder of her face. Her attire consists of a short sleeveless dress, which was further adorned by the presence of numerous bandages that encircle various portions of her body, including her waist and thighs. On her back she carried a long katana that was held up by a length of rope across her right shoulder. You sure made it difficult for us, for such an old man. Angered by the Aotsuki's words, Kosuke glared at her. Difficult? Difficult, you say? You sacrificed your own subordinates like they were nothing. Is that your way of doing things? Unaffected by Kosuke's words, Aotsuki stared back at him with a blank look and replied, if you're ordered to give your life, you obey, simple as that. After which she then began to smile, as if she had done nothing wrong, disgusting Kosuke. Besides, isn't that what subordinates are supposed to do? Didn't you use your subordinates as a diversion so that you and the boy could escape? Upon hearing Aotsuki's words, Kosuke began to laugh. The others who stayed behind to buy us time to escape weren't my subordinates, they were all jonin. They did so that Naruto-san and I could escape. I am their subordinate, as I am only a genin, and for your information there isn't a single shinobi in Konoha who would needless sacrifice the life of a comrade. Why, you're telling me that a mere genin took out my entire unit? Aotsuki repeated angrily, furious at the mere suggestion of it. Ludicrous. The very idea is completely ludicrous. Slowly drawing her sword from her back, Aotsuki began to slowly walk towards the elderly man. Don't think for one second that your death will be quick or painless, old man. I will make you suffer for the humiliation you have just caused me. Smiling cruelly, Aotsuki licked her lips in anticipation of what she planned to do to the elderly shinobi. I'll cut your body up into little pieces. Wounded and with little energy left to fight, Kosuke closed his eyes, resigning himself to his fate. But just as Aotsuki neared him, a sudden hail of senbon needles flew out of the trees behind him, forcing Aotsuki leap back to avoid them. Shortly after, a figure appeared in front of Kosuke. Looking up, the old man was surprised to see it was Naruto. And Naruto-san, what are you doing here? Sorry, old man, but I was worried and I couldn't leave you to face all these guys alone. Naruto-san, you should not have come here. Smirking, Naruto glanced back at the elderly man. Don't worry, I have no intention of dying here, nor will I allow a comrade to give his life for me. Hearing Naruto say those words, Kosuke could not help but be reminded of the Nadaime, the Sandaime and the Yondaime Hokage, each saying similar words to him at different times of his life. Hey, so you're Senju, Naruto? Looks like Princess screwed up, big surprise. Sneered the woman, recognizing Naruto from the photograph she and the rest of her group had been given. Oh well, more glory for me for when I bring you back to Iwa. Upon hearing the real reason why Aotsuki and the other Iwa shinobi had come here, Kosuke was both surprised and confused. Surprised that Iwa would send so many shinobi just to capture Naruto, and confused by how Iwa even knew that Naruto would be here in the first place. You want me? Then come and get me. Naruto retorted as he fell into a fighting stance. Seeing this, Aotsuki couldn't help but laugh, finding the idea of Naruto fighting her laughable. Puff, do you really think that you can take me, kid? You may be talented and all, but you're still just a newly made chunin, while I'm a seasoned jonin. Hey, rank means nothing when it comes to skills. Guess you didn't learn that after your entire group got wiped out by Kosuke-san, a genin. Not liking being reminded of what had just happened to her group, Aotsuki glared angrily at the Senju heir. Listen, kid, I'll make you a deal. Surrender and come with me peacefully and I'll let the old man go. Before Naruto could respond to Aotsuki's offer, Kosuke stood up. I'm afraid that we'll have to refuse your kind offer, Kunoichi-san. Like Naruto-san, I refuse to allow a comrade to sacrifice themselves for me. Having enough of the old shinobi, Aotsuki decided to take them both out in one go, where she stabbed her katana into the ground, formed 5 quick hand seals and yelled, Doten, Dosekiru, Earth style, Earth and Stone Dragon. Creating a massive dragon made out of earth. At the same time, after only performing 6 hand seals, Kosuke created a massive water dragon, much to the shock of Naruto and Aotsuki, and intercepted the earth dragon, destroying it. Impossible, shouted Aotsuki, not believing that her earth dragon had been destroyed by Kosuke's water dragon, especially since she had the elemental advantage. But before she could even get over her shock, Naruto appeared right in front of her and hit her with a supercharged punch right to the stomach, sending crashing through dozen or so trees. With Aotsuki defeated, Kosuke fell to his knees again, his remaining chakra all but spent. Hey old man, you okay? A concerned Naruto asked, after jumping over to Kosuke and helping him up. Yes Naruto-san, I'm fine, just tired and a little sore, this old body of mine isn't as spry as it used to be, the old man replied, half smiling. But his smile soon faded and he quickly adopted a serious look. You should not have come back for me Naruto-san, you should have gone for help at Gurnka. In response Naruto just smirked at the old man. But I didn't, I'm just a clone, the real me headed to Gurnka, not that it matters now, given how they were after me. Surprised by this news, the old man could help but laugh, I see. The real me didn't like the idea of you going against all those Iwa shinobi by yourself and created me to back you up. I would have been here sooner, but I had to circle around the Iwa shinobi so that they wouldn't detect me. But I guess in the end you didn't need my help after all, remarked the clone, remembering the number of dead Iwa shinobi he saw as he made his way to Kosuke. Perhaps, but I appreciate the thought either way Naruto-san, Kosuke replied with a smile before he groaned in pain from his earlier wounds. After a quick look at Kosuke's wounds, the clone decided that it would be best to find a more secure location before treating Kosuke's injuries. As they made their way through the forest, the clone decided to ask Kosuke something that had been wondering. Kosuke-san, how is it that you were able to perform the Suirudan no Jutsu, water dragon technique, with so few hand seals? I mean when I use it I have to perform 44 hand seals. With enough skill and training a shinobi can reduce the number of hand seals needed to perform certain jutsu. But it takes a great deal of training to do so. Your ancestor the Nadaime Hokage could produce a water dragon on a much larger scale, using just the moisture in the air, which shows just how great his skill and mastery was. Already aware of the Nadaime Hokage's skills in water ninjutsu, the clone nodded, having heard stories from Tsunade, Jiraiya and the Sandaime. He had also seen the former Hokage's skill firsthand from the invasion, where he saw him create a water dragon with just one hand seal. What he hadn't expected was someone else to do it to a similar level, having believed that only the Nadaime Hokage could do such a thing. Once they were in a secure enough location, the clone laid Kosuke down and created several more copies of himself, he then ordered them to make a perimeter around them, so that no one could sneak up on them. He also dispelled an extra clone so that the real Naruto would know where to find them. After the other clones had left, the original Naruto clone began treating Kosuke for his injuries, while examining for any less obvious ones. So how are you feeling now Kosuke-san? The clone asked, once he had finished healing the elderly shinobi. Much better thank you, an appreciative Kosuke replied while sitting up. Still you should take it easy, you used up a lot of chakra at the end and it be a while before you regain it naturally. Smiling at the young man's concern, Kosuke nodded, you're a good boy Naruto-san and a fine shinobi, I'm certain your father, the Yondaime Hokage, would be very proud of you. At the mention of the Yondaime being his father the clone gasped, but before he could deny it, Kosuke raised his hand up to stop him. You needn't worry Naruto-san, I shall tell no one the truth. I understand the reasons why it needs to stay secret. How did you know? I may be old, but I'm not senile, at least not yet, Kosuke replied with another smile. I knew your father when he was your age, and watched him become a great shinobi. You remind me of him, not just in appearances, but in personality as well. In fact it was what you said about never abandoning a comrade that confirmed what I already suspected. Really? Yes, said Kosuke, nodding his head. Many years ago, I went on a mission with your father to retrieve a scroll from Kumo. During the mission I tried to sacrifice myself so to allow your father to escape with the scroll. But your father would not allow this, he not only saved my life but defeated the Kumo shinobi as well. Afterwards he, much like you, told me that he would not allow a comrade to give their life up for him. When Kosuke finished his story, Naruto couldn't help but smile, since it made him feel that little bit closer to his father. Not long after, the two were soon joined by the real Naruto, who was accompanied by two other Konoha shinobi from Gunka base. Upon arriving, the other Konoha shinobi informed Kosuke that they had sent reinforcements to aid Kushina and the others and that they should arrive shortly. With the area now secured, the real Naruto deactivated his clones, allowing him to receive all their information, including what Kosuke told his clone, which Naruto kept to himself so not to cause a scene in front of the other shinobi. By daybreak, Kushina and their team arrived with the few shinobi from Gunka base, with little injury, much to Naruto's relief. Upon arriving, she informed them that the remaining Iwa shinobi had retreated back across the border after they learned that the forces from Gunka base were nearing them. So you're saying that the entire attack was all just one big diversion, just so that they could capture you? Asked Kushina after Naruto finished telling him about his fight with Kurotsuki and her squad. That's what she said, Naruto answered, although killing me was also an option for them. I can confirm Naruto-san's story, Kushina-san, since the Iwa Kunoichi said as much, and was even willing to let me go if Naruto surrendered to her, Kosuke added. Damn, Iwa must really want you badly if they sent all those shinobi just to capture you, Tekino remarked, glancing at Naruto, whom seemed slightly unconformable with the whole situation. Agreed, said Hayama, joining the conversation. Especially when you consider the fact that both the Sandaime Chushikage's son and granddaughter were involved in the operation. What worries me more is how they even knew that Naruto would be with us, remarked Yamato, receiving several nods from everyone. The answer, of course, was obvious. Somewhere in Konoha they had a spy who was supplying Iwa with detailed information about their operations. Turning to his student, Yamato suddenly asked, "Tell me, Naruto, after you defeated the Chushikage's granddaughter, what did you do to her?" "Well, I didn't kill her if that's what you're asking," the blonde replied. "I didn't want to give Iwa any more reason to come after me. And I knew bringing her back to Konoha wouldn't do much good since we would have to hand her back to Iwa anyway." "So you let her go then?" Tekino asked. "Well, I wouldn't say that," replied Naruto with knowing smirk, which caused the group to look at one another in concern. Shortly after regaining conscious after being knocked out by Naruto, Akatsuki made his way over to Roku, who had been left completely immobilized by the senbon needles Naruto hit him with. After removing the needles and giving him an antidote for the poison, Akatsuki went to wake up the rest of his squad, who was still knocked out from Naruto's knockout gas. Once everyone was awake, the group quickly began to search for Kurotsuki and Naruto. Following the tracks and trail of damage left from the fight, the Iwa group soon found their leader. But when they did, her condition was not what they expected. Instead of finding her dead, injured or even knocked out, they found her wrapped up from head to toe in vines, hanging from a tall tree, with a large note attached on her chest that said, "One spoilt arrogant rock princess wrapped up and ready for delivery. Courteously of Senju Naruto. P.S. Next time, send your best." Needless to say, when the group saw the state their leader was left in, many of them struggled to keep a straight face. The other members, though, were not as controlled and burst out laughing when they saw her. Seeing this, Kurotsuki began to struggle against the vines and scream at her teammates to get her down from the tree and free her from the vines. But due to the vines covering her mouth, none of the other Iwa shinobi could understand what she was saying, which caused them to laugh even harder as they listened to her muffled screams of rage. Needless to say, it was a while before her teammates could calm down enough to cut her down from the tree. It was even longer before any of them could even look at her in the face and not burst out laughing at the memory of her hanging from a treetops like a piñata. Listening to her teammates' laughter, the Chushikage's granddaughter fumed and began to tune out their laughter. Focusing on one thought and one thought alone, one that would help her bear thought all the mockery and ridicule that was to come later on, and that thought was what she would do to a certain blonde-haired Chunin once she got her hands on him. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.